Maul and Asajj Ventress are two Star Wars characters who actually have a lot in common, but it's not something you see often discussed in the fandom, as we've only ever seen them cross paths once in canon. For example, they're both Dathomirian Zabraks that wield red lightsabers and favor the Jarkai fighting style. They have rivalries with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they both died in canon, only to have their deaths retconned 9 years later. Their stories also share a lot of complex themes of abandonment, rejection, and tragedy. Maul and Ventress are a lot more alike than you may realize, and that's exactly what I want to break down in this video, along with some speculation for the Maul Shadow Lord series and when these two characters might cross paths again. But before we continue, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on any of my Star Wars content. Star Wars animation is literally my favorite part of Star Wars storytelling, and I really appreciate all of your support. Maul and Ventress were both born on the planet Dathomir, Maul in 54 BBY, and Ventress 4 years later in 50 BBY, to members of the Night Sister clan. Maul is actually the son of the leader of the Night Sisters, Mother Talzin, while Ventress's mother was a member of the clan itself. While not all Dathomirian Zabraks were Force sensitive, both Ventress and Maul were born with a natural affinity for the Force and began to show signs of Force sensitivity at an early age. Maul's abilities eventually caught the attention of Darth Sidious, who at the time was in league with Mother Talzin. Around 40 BBY, Sidious abducted a 14-year-old Maul from the planet, crossing the deal he made with Talzin, claiming Maul as his apprentice, whereas Ventress was forcibly given away as a child in a deal to protect the Night Sister Coven from a crime lord. Both of these events laid the groundwork for the years of abandonment trauma these two characters would suffer, though this was just the beginning. Maul and Ventress would both eventually train as Sith apprentices and assassins, though unlike Darth Maul, Ventress was never given an official Sith moniker. Maul trained under the tutelage of Darth Sidious for about 22 years leading up to his duel with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Naboo, while Ventress was originally trained as a Jedi Padawan under the Jedi Knight Kai Narek for 21 years, but Narek's death in 23 BBY would be the catalyst for Ventress's fall to the dark side a year prior to the beginning of the Clone Wars. Shortly after, Ventress would pledge herself to Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, and the teachings of the Sith, while Maul was indoctrinated into the Sith by Sidious. Unfortunately, both characters would come to be rejected and abandoned again, but this time by their respective Sith masters. Dooku would betray and abandon Ventress in 20 BBY as a test of loyalty to Sidious during the Battle of Sullust. Following this, Ventress returned to Dathomir, seeking solace and kinship among the Night Sisters. Here, Ventress would plot her revenge against Dooku with the help of Mother Talzin, leading to the introduction of Savage Opress, a Night Brother handpicked by Ventress to serve in their revenge plot. While their plan eventually failed, Talzin revealed Savage's lineage as Maul's brother and tasked him to track down the Forgotten Sith Lord as a new master. Ventress and Maul would both return to Dathomir and rejoin the Night Sisters and Night Brothers, but they too would eventually be taken away from them in the end. In response to their assassination attempts, Dooku launched a full-scale attack on Dathomir led by General Grievous, and despite holding their own against the droid army, the Night Sisters were ultimately overwhelmed, with only Ventress and Talzin surviving the battle. With nowhere left to go and no one in the galaxy she could trust, Ventress dove into the Star Wars underworld, taking jobs as a bounty hunter in the final years of the Clone Wars. After learning of a bounty placed on Savage Opress, Ventress tracked down her former ally to collect, ultimately leading to the first and only time Ventress and Maul crossed paths, resulting in a lightsaber duel. Following his reemergence, Maul and Savage waged war on the criminal underworld in a move to consolidate power over the syndicates, forming their own criminal faction known as the Shadow Collective. Their actions would eventually catch the attention of Darth Sidious, who confronted the brothers on Mandalore, killing Savage and taking Maul as his prisoner. It's at this point that we recognize Sidious's hold on Maul all these years as he pleads to his former master that his actions were done in hopes of becoming his apprentice once more, but Sidious rejects Maul's offer, once again abandoning his former apprentice for the second time, the first being after his supposed death on Naboo. Speaking of supposed deaths, let's talk about how Maul and Ventress both had deaths in canon media, only to be brought back for larger roles in other Star Wars stories. Maul was presumed dead back in 1999 following the events of The Phantom Menace, but was brought back 9 years later for the Clone Wars series, Star Wars Rebels, and Solo: A Star Wars Story, while Ventress was presumed dead in 2015 following the events of the Dark Disciple novel, but was brought back 9 years later for the Bad Batch series and Tales of the Underworld. In Dark Disciple, we see a romantic relationship form between Ventress and Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. However, we have yet to see the same for Maul. As the dark side of this dyad, you could say that Maul's hate is to Ventress's love, citing Maul's deep hatred of Kenobi, though I could see Maul forming a romantic relationship with the Twi'lek character he takes on as an apprentice in the Maul Shadow Lord series. Star Wars has tested the waters of dark side romances with both Dark Disciple and even more recently in The Acolyte with Osha and Chimere, so I could definitely see them doing the same with Maul and Shadow Lord as well. Speaking of Shadow Lord, let's talk about it. Maul Shadow Lord is a brand new animated series following Maul as he rebuilt his criminal syndicate in the early years of the Galactic Empire, roughly 1 year after the Clone Wars Season 7 and 18 BBY, up until his eventual death in 2 BBY. A trailer for the series was shown at Star Wars Celebration Japan, including scenes of Maul confronting the first brother Marok, a new Verk Jedi survivor, but most surprisingly, after experiencing a Force vision, Maul takes on a young Twi'lek apprentice who he believes will help him on his quest for vengeance. Based on what little we know about the series so far, there's no mention of Ventress's involvement, though I wouldn't count her out just yet. Similar to how Ventress served as the foil to Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars series, she could also serve as the foil to Maul and Shadow Lord. If we do see Ventress in the series, I don't expect her to play a large role, but I do suspect that she and Maul will cross paths again at some point within the Star Wars underworld. There's only so many Dathomirian Zabraks running around at this point in the timeline, and having a reunion between these two characters would only serve to reinforce their parallel journeys and shared experiences that have shaped them into the two very different people they have become. Almost like a what could have been moment. It would also be interesting to see how their similar paths but differing choices influence their teachings and apprentices. Behind the scenes, there's also a handful of similarities between Maul and Ventress as well. When we first meet Maul and Ventress, both characters wield double-bladed red lightsabers, but eventually switch to dual-wielding their weapons separately over time. The concept art for what would have been the hilt of Ventress's yellow lightsaber in the Dark Disciple arc was actually repurposed as half of Maul's reconstructed double-bladed lightsaber for the Clone Wars Season 7. Both the Ventress-centric Dark Disciple arc and the Maul-centric Son of Dathomir arc were planned for the original Clone Wars Season 7 prior to the series cancellation in 2013, but have since been released as a novel and comic, respectively, as a part of the Clone Wars Legacy multimedia project. In 2025, we got a tease of what a Ventress show could look like with the release of Tales of the Underworld, while Maul is set to star in his own series, Maul Shadow Lord, in 2026. But what you may not know is that both of these shows share the same writer and executive producer. Matt Michnovitz, who wrote all 6 episodes of Tales of the Underworld and served on the Clone Wars writing teams for both Dark Disciple and Son of Dathomir, will also serve as the head writer for Shadow Lord, while Athena Portillo serves as executive producer of both series. By the end of the Clone Wars, Maul and Ventress have taken control of their lives for the first time, forging their own paths forward. Ventress is mostly good and Maul is still mostly bad, but neither of them is completely one or the other. Ventress making the choice to let go of her hatred is what ultimately saved her, while Maul's hatred is the very thing that led to his downfall, and this is what makes their story so compelling and complex. I can't wait to see where they go from here. But what do you think of Maul and Ventress's connection, and do you think we'll see them reunite in Maul Shadow Lord? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on social media at ScottyHolidaySW, and as always, may the Force be with you.